अक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं। नत्वा सरस्वतीं देवीं शुद्धां गुण्यां करोम्यहं पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय लघुसिद्धान्तकौमुदीम्। लघुसिद्धान्तकौमुद्याः मङ्गलाचरणे नत्वा सरस्वतीं देवीं शुद्धां गुण्यां करोमि अहम् इत्येतेषां सर्वेषां शब्दानाम् अध्ययनम् अस्माभिः कृतम्। वर्गस्य अन्ते पुनरावर्तनं कुर्मः। अद्य आदौ अग्रिमः शब्दः पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय इत्यस्य अध्ययनं प्रारभामहे। पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय चतुर्थी विभक्तिः। ङे इति प्रत्ययः, ङेर्यः इति यकारादेशः भवति, सुपि च इति दीर्घः भवति, सर्वैः ज्ञायते। तत्र पाणिनीयप्रवेश इति मूलं प्रातिपदिकं समासान्तम् अस्ति इति पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे दृष्टम्। समासान्तं कीदृशः समासः इति इदानीं किञ्चित् पश्यामः। तत्र पाणिनीयप्रवेश इत्यस्मिन् शब्दे पाणिनीय इति एकः शब्दः, प्रवेश इति अपरः शब्दः। तत्र समासः कीदृशः अस्ति इत्यस्य ज्ञानात् पूर्वं किञ्चित् प्रवेश इति शब्दस्य विषये जानीमः। प्रवेश इत्यत्र कः धातुः?
विश्
विश, प्र उपसर्गपूर्वकः विश धातुः। कः प्रत्ययः? घञ्। घञ् इति प्रत्ययः अस्ति। कस्मिन् अर्थे अयं प्रत्ययः प्रयुज्यते?
भावार्थे।
भावार्थे प्रयुज्यते। प्रविश भावे घञ् इत्यत्र प्रवेशः इति शब्दः सिद्ध्यति। इदानीं भवद्भिः ज्ञाताः केचन अन्ये भावार्थकाः प्रत्ययाः के के? गिव् मी 1 or 2 examples.
त्वत् तल् भावे त्वत्तलौ
So
Lyudant.
bhave, I'll come. Yeah. So bhave tvatalau are tadhita pratyayas. We will talk about them at some other point in time. Right now we are talking about ghai, which is the krit pratyaya. So lut is another example. What is the example of lut? Ramaha Ramaha pustakam pathati ityasya lut pratyayena prayogaha katham bhavati?
रामः पुस्तकस्य पठनं करोति.
So what change did you do? Pustakam ityasya sthane pustakasya iti षष्ठी विभक्तिः भवति.
सत्यं.
सम्यक् सम्यक् यत्र यत्र भावार्थकः प्रत्ययः वाक्ये प्रयुज्यते, कृत्सम्यकः प्रत्ययः, तत्र मूलवाक्ये विद्यमानं कर्मपदं यद् द्वितीया विभक्तौ वर्तते तस्य षष्ठी विभक्तौ परिवर्तनं भवति नित्यम्. Anytime there is a karma pada in the original sentence, you convert it using a krut pratyaya to indicate the bhava. The dvitiya becomes the shashti. In most of the cases, there are exceptions, but this can be taken as a general rule. Therefore, रामः वनं प्रविशति। अत्र रामः वनस्य प्रवेशं करोति इति वदामः। Just like the way रामः ग्रन्थं लिखति becomes रामः ग्रन्थस्य लेखनं करोति, in the same way रामः वनं प्रविशति becomes रामः वनस्य प्रवेशं करोति, and therefore पाणिनीय प्रवेश can also be broken down in the same way पाणिनीयस्य प्रवेशः। अतः अत्र षष्ठी तत्पुरुष समासः। पाणिनीयस्य प्रवेशः, पाणिनीय प्रवेशः इति षष्ठी तत्पुरुषस्य उदाहरणं किं सूत्रं? षष्ठी इत्येव सूत्रम्। द्वितीयाध्यायस्य द्वितीयपादस्य अष्टमं सूत्रं षष्ठी इति षष्ठ्यन्तं सुबन्तं समर्थेन सुबन्तेन सह समस्यते तत्पुरुष समासः भवति। So there are those 7 samas tatpurusha samasas based on the vibhaktis. Prathama tatpurusha, Dvitiya tatpurusha up to Saptami tatpurusha. Shashti tatpurusha is the only samasa where there is no restriction. See the meaning. Shashtyantam subantam. Any subanta which is in the Shashti, subantena saha samasyate, undergoes a samasa with any other subanta. For all other samasas, Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, Panchami and Saptami, there are very hard restrictions. The Purva Pada must come from a specific set, or the Uttara Pada must come from a specific set, and so on. Only for the Shashti Tatpurusha Samasa, no such restrictions exist. Therefore, Paniniyasya Praveshaha, Paniniya Praveshaha iti Shashti Tatpurusha Samasa atra avashyam bhavitum arhati. However, if I ask you Paniniya Praveshaha iti shabdasya samasa vigraham kurmaha, and if you don't know any of this business, Shashti Tatpurusha and so on, what would be your immediate reply? How will you do a samasa vigraha?
Saptami.
Katham saptami vibhaktya bhavati?
Entry in to Panini or entry in.
So if we want to interpret this word in a natural language style, it will be something like Paniniye praveshaha, vane praveshaha, gruhe praveshaha, mandire praveshaha, Paniniye praveshaha. अतः तत्र सामान्य रूपेण सप्तमी तत्पुरुषः अपि भवितुम् अर्हति. षष्ठी तत्पुरुषः तु अवश्यं भवति, परन्तु सप्तमी तत्पुरुषः अपि भवितुम् अर्हति. So which is the sutram that gives the saptami tatpurusha? Anybody?
तत्र शौण् किमपि अस्ति खलु
शौण्डे सप्तमी
Saptami shaundaihi, saptami shaundaihi. Iti sutram saptami shaundaihi. Anena sutrena saptami tatpurusha samasah diyate. अस्य सूत्रस्य कः अर्थः? सप्तम्यन्तं शौण्डादिभिः सह समस्यते. शौण्डादिगणे ये शब्दाः विद्यन्ते तैः सह सप्तम्यन्तस्य पदस्य समासः भवति. See the restrictions. For Shashti, we did not have any such restrictions. Any Shashthyanta Subanta will combine with any other Shashthyanta Subanta. That was a general Shashti Samasa. For all other samasas, there are additional restrictions. So Purva Padam must be from some set or Uttara Padam must be from some set. So Atra Shaundadibhihi Saha Eva Saptamyantasya Shabdasya Samasaha Bhavati. And what is this Shaundadigana? Shaunda is there, Dhurta is there, Kitava, Vyada, Pravina, Samvita. So Vyakarane Pravinaha, Vyakarana Pravinaha, Sangite Pravinaha, Sangita Pravinaha, iti vaktum shaknumaha. अंतर पटु पंडितः सो न्याये पंडितः न्याय पंडितः चपलः निपुणः and that's it. There is no praveshah. So if there is no praveshah over here and there is no other, so there are 2 or 3 more other sutras, but you don't get any of those sutras, in this particular context. So yadi atra etadrisham shaundadi gane ayam shabdah na vidyate तर्हि पाणिनीये प्रवेशः पाणिनीय प्रवेशः इत्यस्य समर्थनं कथं करणीयम्? तर्हि प्रायेण शौण्डादिगणः आकृतिगणः भवेत् इति प्रायेण चिन्तनं. Maybe Shaundadikana is Akrutigana, but we don't see it is an Akrutigana over here. Go to the Ganapatha, check if it is an Akrutigana. It doesn't turn out to be Akrutigana. So Atra Saptami Shaundaihi iti sutrasya prayogaha na bhavitumarhati. Tarhi पाणिनीये प्रवेशः पाणिनीय प्रवेशः इति अत्र कथं साधुत्वं प्राप्नोति इति चेत् तत्र वैयाकरणैः एका युक्तिः प्रयुज्यते. So tatra किं क्रियते? What the Bhashyakara proposes is that the Bhashyakara proposes you break down this sutra into 2 different sutras. One sutra becomes Saptami and other sutra becomes Shaundaihi. This, now how this helps, I'll come to that in a minute. But this artificial breaking down of sutras into 2 sutras just to justify certain prayogas is called Yoga Vibhagaha. Yoga ityukte sutram. Vibhaga is to divide. Yoga Vibhagaha sutrasya Vibhagaha kriyate. This is only an argument. We are actually not dividing the sutram into 2 parts. We are not renumbering the sutra patha. We are not doing anything. Only for justifying a certain prayoga, you do a yoga vibhaga, which means instead of a single sutram called Saptami Shaundaihi, you create one sutram called Saptami and you create other sutram called Shaundaihi. Now, how does that help? Eventually, it should result in the answer of the problem. So, the way this helps is that the second sutram, which is just the Shaundaihi, it takes the anuvrutti of the word Saptami, and therefore that sutra automatically becomes a Saptami Shaundaihi, which is what Panini has given. And therefore, all the commentary that appears for Saptami Shaundaihi can go to that sutram. Understand this once again. You do a yoga vibhaga. First is a saptami, second is shaundaihi. The saptami comes as an anuvrutti in shaundaihi. So the second sutra becomes automatically saptami shaundaihi, and then everything that is written for this sutram can go over there. The first sutram is now only saptami. That sutram is used to interpret by, or that sutram is interpreted by saying saptamyantam padam samarthena samasyate. So now there is no shaundaihi, but we are still in the samasa prakaranam. So just like the way we had a standalone sutram called shashti. Remember, we had a standalone sutram called shashti, and there we said shashtyantam subantam samarthena. Samartha means related. Shashtyantam subantam samarthena sah samasyate. In the same way, now we will use this saptami and we will say saptamyantam subantam samarthena samasyate. So just like the Shashti Sutram, now this Saptami Sutram can be used for all kinds of Saptami Tatpurusha Samasa. Having said that, such a Yoga Vibhaga must only be done to justify the existing Prayogas. You cannot do it for any random Prayogas that you want to create. The difference between the Shashti Sutram and the newly created Saptami Sutram is that the Shashti Sutram is a real Sutram. So you can use it whatever you want. Take any word, any other word, Sambandhaha Bhavecche Shashti Tatpurushaha. You cannot do that for Saptami Tatpurusha. You have to use, sutras like Saptami, Shaundaihi and others. Yatra etadrishaihi sutraihi शब्दस्य साधुत्वं वक्तुं न शक्यते तत्र योगविभागस्य प्रयोगं कृत्वा सप्तमी इति केवलं भिन्नं सूत्रं स्वीकृत्य तेन सह अत्र साधुत्वं लभ्यते वा इति चिन्तनं करणीयम्. So I will show you a quick thing. Go to the Vyakhyananveshanam and just search for Saptamiti Yoga Vibhagat or something. You will see at a few places in the Vyakhyanas, in Padamanjari, in Nyasa, in Balamanorama, you can see this kind of trick employed. So we are not the first person to employ this trick. We see Nyasa says Saptami iti Yoga Vibhagat kinchit bhavati. अनेकमन्य पदार्थ इत्यत्र पदमंजर्यां सप्तमीति योग विभागात् समासः. In Balamanorama also somewhere else Saptamiti Yoga Vibhagat Samasaha. So what are the meanings of these sutras and all that ignore. But this technique of doing Yoga Vibhaga is not something that is new. It has been starting up all the way from, it has been actually proposed by the Bhashyakara. And specifically for this Sutram Saptami Shaundaihi, this is a very well known technique. So, the Purushottamaha, Purusheshu Uttamaha, Purushottamaha. A very common word in Bhagavad Gita is justified using Saptami Tatpurusha. Or at the starting of Ramayanam, Tapaswadhyaya Niratam, तपस्वाध्याये निरतम तत्रापि सप्तमी तत्पुरुष समासेन सप्तमी शौण्डैः इति सप्तमी योग इत्यत्र सप्तमी इति योग विभागं कृत्वा तस्य शब्दस्य साधुत्वं प्रतिपादितम् अस्ति. So Saptami iti yoga vibhagaha for Saptami Shaundaihi is a typical, is a well known, is a commonly accepted technique. Ataha atra Paniniya Praveshaha ityatra Saptami Tatpurusha Samasena Paniniye Praveshaha iti vaktum shakyate. Tatra Saptami Shaundaihi iti yoga vibhagaha. No chet you can always use Shashti. So nobody is saying that you don't use Shashti. So Shashti Vibhaktyaha Prayogam Krutva Shashti iti Samasena iti sutrena. So then you don't need any yoga vibhaga over there. Shashti iti sutrena avashyam shashti tatpurusha samasam krutva paniniyasya pravesha paniniya pravesha iti api vaktum shakyate. Any questions on this particular point so far?
Yeah, I have one question. How do we bring in Pravesha into the Shaundaihi? You said it's a group of words, right? Shaundaihi.
So we do not bring in. That's the point. You do if pravesha is brought in shaundaihi, then you don't need a yoga vibhaga. Yoga Vibhaga means the sutra is broken down. The first sutram has no relation with Shaundaihi now. See, you cannot take the Anuvritti in reverse. So Saptami will be the first sutram. It doesn't know anything about Shaundaihi. The second sutram is Shaundaihi, which brings in Saptami. So second sutra becomes Saptami Shaundaihi. The first sutram is just Saptami.
But Pravesha is not a Saptamyanta word, right? Pravesha.
We are talking about the saptami of the purva pada. Paniniye praveshah, paniniya praveshah. In saptami shaundaihi, shaundadigana is not in saptami vibhakti. The previous word is in saptami vibhakti, shaundadigana is in prathama, and you are doing the samas over there. Any further questions?
Mahodaya, now if we are wanting to construct a samasa by ourselves, we are limited by this Shaundadigana for Saptami samasas. Beyond that, we don't have scope to create, right?
That is correct. So not just Saptandadigana, there are like 3-4 sutras in that list. So if you go to this Saptami, where did it? Saptami Shaundaihi, and then there are a few more in that list. What happened? So Siddha Shushka Pakva Bandhaisha. So Siddha is there, Shushka is there, Pakva is there. But so Saptami Shaundaihi and a few sutras. Other
Okay.
than that, but each of these sutras will give a fixed set of words. So if you combine all those words, that's all your subset. That's all your full superset. Beyond that, you cannot go.
Okay.
यदि वयं षष्ठी तत्पुरुष समासं कुर्मः उत सप्तमी तत्पुरुष समासं कुर्मः अर्थः तु न भिद्यते किल?
किमर्थं न भिद्यते इति चेत् तत्र उत्तरपदप्रधानः अयं समासः, अतः तादृशः प्रवेशः इत्येव अन्ते अर्थः, अतः सप्तमी तत्पुरुषसमासः अपि भवितुमर्हति, षष्ठी तत्पुरुषसमासः अपि
प्रवेशस्य
भवितुमर्हति.
प्राधान्यं.
प्रवेशस्य प्राधान्यं.
अस्तु.
करेक्ट.
If these forms like tapaswadhyaye natam, all those forms are those forms are already existing now, sir. So why didn't Vatikakara make rules for add that is like Vatikakara adds in other places? Why didn't he say that Saptami Shaundai and add such forms here?
Well, we can ask the same question about Sutrakara also. Weren't these forms existing before Sutrakara? Why did he not add a sutram? Right? So we can ask the same thing for Bhashyakar also. Why cannot he add such a statement? So things miss out, and people miss out on the things. There is no other particular reason for that. Or maybe there was some other derivation popular at that time which we are not aware of right now. That's the only answer.
Okay.
Okay.
महोदय मम एकः प्रश्नः अस्ति
उच्यताम्.
इदानीं कुत्र कुत्र भवति इति कथं ज्ञातुं शक्नुमः?
किं कुत्र कुत्र भवति सप्तमी तत्पुरुषः?
आम् सत्यम्. इदानीं तु
तत्र सप्तमी तत्र पश्यतु किल न सो वेट्. सो सप्तमी तत्पुरुषः सप्तमी शौण्डैः इति सूत्रेण तदा एव भवति यदा उत्तरपदं शौण्डादिगणे विद्यते. So Purvapadam can be anything. Anything means it should be related. So for example, Pandita means you need to have some kind of Shastra or skill in which you are showing the expertise. Right?
Satyam.
So it may be cooking, walking, whatever. So corresponding to a word of Shaundadigana, there must be a related word which is Purvapada. That's all that this sutra says. So technically Purvapadas can be infinite, but you have to choose a related one. So eventually your set becomes limited. And the Uttarapadam has to be one of those.
अस्तु. इदानीं जिज्ञासा इति पदम् अस्ति, तत्रापि भवितुं शक्नोति किम्?
तत्र अस्ति वा जिज्ञासा अत्र शौण्डादिगणे?
गणे नास्ति.
तर्हि न भवति तदेव.
किन्तु वयं पश्यामः किमपि व्याकरण जिज्ञासा.
व्याकरण जिज्ञासा इज व्याकरणस्य जिज्ञासा. There is no vyakarana jignasa there. It is vyakaranasya jignasa only. So you cannot, that's what I said in the beginning, except for Shashti Tatpurusha Samasa, you cannot randomly create any other Dvitiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, Panchami, Saptami Tatpurusha Samasas. It must be supported by the sutras. Now, if you go to I'll explain this once again. Go to the Ganapatha. In the Ganapatha, there will be Shaundadi Gana over here, Gana number 8. Look at the list. Only these words can undergo a Saptami Tatpurusha. No other word, howsoever it looks familiar to you, it does not undergo Saptami Tatpurusha. If the Jyeshthas, if the scholars try to say it is Saptami Tatpurusha or have asserted it is Saptami Tatpurusha, and if the word is not there in Shaundadigana, the way to justify is to do the Yoga Vibhaga. But Yoga Vibhaga cannot be done just because you think something is Saptami Tatpurusha. Clear?
So is this the same for a Panchami also? Like Panchami only goes with Bhitah, but when you say Grihat Nirgatah, Griha Nirgatah, tatra api you are doing an exception, right? Is that also yoga vibhaga?
So anytime you are trying to justify a prayoga without the corresponding sutra backing to it, there is always a yoga vibhaga. So panchami iti yoga vibhagah, saptami iti yoga vibhagah iti vaktum shakyate. Parantu kutra etadrusham vaktavyam iti chet yatra tadrushah prayogah शिष्टैः प्रयुक्तः अस्ति तत्रैव वक्तव्यम्. So
So we
specifically for
can
yes, go ahead.
so we can say that if there is a prayoga of that form and we are not able to justify it in any other way, then by using yoga vibhaga it can be justified. Am I right in
So
understanding?
yoga vibhaga is one technique of justifying prayogas that might not be justifiable using the current framework of the sutras. There might be multiple techniques. We have to see which technique is used in which cases. So coming back to the question, so you have Panchami iti yoga vibhaga. So even for the Panchami bhayena, you have the yoga vibhaga where the Panchami word is separated out. Okay, but again, that should be
Mahodaya,
used for only examples like Gruha Nirga, whatever Gruha Nirgata or Swar. I don't know if that is a typical example of Yoga Vibhaga. I don't remember for Panchami Tatpurusha Samasa. But assuming that is one of the typical examples, you can use that.
So where do we,
Mahodaya,
where will this vibhaga be given? In Tika?
In Tika, that is correct. You have to refer to the commentaries to see if there is a Yoga Vibhaga. Just because you cannot think of a good Samasa solution, you can't use it Vibhaga, Yoga Vibhaga on your own.
Astu, astu. So टीकायाम् अस्ति चेत् तत्र justification yoga vibhaga अस्ति, किन्तु कोऽपि एतत्तु पञ्चमी समास इति पञ्चमी तत्पुरुष इति वदति चेत् एव वयं justify कर्तुं शक्नुमः.
That is correct. That is
अस्तु,
correct.
धन्यवादः.
One person at a time. Sumanji, all your questions over?
आं महोदय, धन्यवादः.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Now
Mahodaya,
who?
I have a question.
Yes.
Mahodaya, see, this is probably a small extension of what the earlier person said. If I want to say in English, I'm interested in vyakarana. So correspondingly, as a vyasta prayoga, I can say vyakarane mama abhiruchihi asti.
Correct.
But there I do not have a scope to do a samasa because it doesn't belong to Shaundadigana. Is my understanding correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes, not every Vyasta Prayoga has a corresponding Samasta Prayoga. Vyakarane ruchihi, Vyakarana ruchihi iti na bhavitum
Okay.
shakyate. Parantu Vyakarane nipunaha iti vaktum shaknumaha. Nipuna iti shabdha Shaundadigane asti.
Okay.
Further, any more questions?
Mahoday,
Vadatu.
why did we even go through the trouble of deriving this Paniniye Praveshaya when Paniniyasya Praveshaha was fine?
That is very good
Why?
question because your Sudha Teeka uses a Saptami Tatpurusha and not Shashti Tatpurusha. If Sudha Teeka would have used Shashti Tatpurusha, there was no reason to go to Saptami Tatpurusha. Let's look at the Sudha Teeka. Look at this. Tasmin buddhehe praveshaha. I'm going to explain the whole line. Don't worry about it. But look at only this part which is highlighted. Tasmin means paniniye praveshaha. Kasya praveshaha? You are not physically entering it. Your intellect is entering there. So buddhehe praveshaha. So tasmin praveshaha iti sudhatikayam saptami tatpurushaha dattah asti. So I have to justify. This is actually a very good point. I am myself not a scholar or a shishta to justify Saptami Tatpurusha by Yoga Vibhaga. If commentaries or scholars have not said Saptami Tatpurusha, even we cannot justify it using the Saptami Tatpurusha. But your Tika says it is Saptami Tatpurusha, so I have to justify it using Yoga Vibhaga. Clear? Okay. Any further questions on Paniniya Praveshaha? Sada Gopanji. Just one second. Sada Gopanji.
With some hesitation, I would like to ask the Samasa, the Sanskrit speakers are so fond of Samastapada. And there is a kavya like Kadambari where Each samasa may run into 5 sentences to 25 sentences. Now, or lines, 5 lines to 20 lines. Now, it's almost difficult to believe all these samastapadas are sticking to the rules of the grammar as put by Panini, because he has got a limited number of sutras to say. Within that limited, the scope for the samas also very much reduced. Do you think that the entire gamut of Sahitya can be covered by these few rules?
That's a very good question. So the point is, even if the rules are few, the construct of the rules makes it, you know, encompass a significantly large number of samasas. So just the Shashti single sutram with 2-3 letters encompasses like more than 50% of the samasas in Sanskrit grammar. A lot of samasas can be justified using Shashti Tatpurusha samasa. All other types of samasas, of course I have not read all the Kadambari and all the other samasas and tried to analyze it, but my gut feeling would be, given that Panini's grammar is so well respected and studied all over the years, it looks like that most of these constructs are already covered in the Sutra Patha, and whatever constructs are missing out, we have techniques like Yoga Vibhaga to fix them. But I would definitely say that this does a brilliant job of capturing most of the samasas. Simple Karmadharaya Samasa, for example, he uses Visheshanam Visheshena Bahulam, which means any Visheshana can combine with any Vishesha. So that itself will capture absolutely every Karmadharaya Samasa that is there in the world. So yes, so it's possible to have simple sutras capture the whole gamut of the samasas. Of course, there might be exceptions. There will be exceptions, like the very first word of Ramayanam, for example. These you have to justify it based on one-off analysis. Does that answer your question? May not be, but that's all that I can offer at this stage. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
okay, yeah. Okay, Sumanji, you had a question?
समासस्य विषये नास्ति इदानीं तु पूर्वं भवान् उक्तवान् तत्र घै प्रत्यय अस्ति घै प्रत्ययस्य विषये किमपि किञ्चित् कृपया
I'm just coming to that. So after Paniniya Pravesha, but that's okay. You have asked. So Ghaya Ityatra 3.3.18 Bhave iti sutram, one of the most important sutras of the Krudanta Prakaranam. Bhave iti sutrana kimuchyate sarvebhyah dhatubhyah bhavasya nirdeshartham ghai iti pratyayah bhavati. Bhave vachye dhatoho ghai iti pratyayah bhavati. Pachana bhava means the action itself. Pachana kriyayaha bhavaha ityukte pachana kriya itself is called pakaha. त्यागः रागः अनेन प्रकारेण भावस्य निर्देशार्थं घञ् इति प्रत्ययः सर्वेभ्यः अपि धातुभ्यः विधीयते.
So, Mahodaya, when we use this ghai pratyaya with Ramu Kridayam to construct Rama Shabda, we understand that Rama Shabda is also a bhave kind of a word.
So the घञ् pratyaya that is used in the Rama Shabda is not bhave, it is adhikarane घञ्. Ramante yoginah asmin iti Ramah. A pratyaya can be used in multiple senses.
So with the ghai pratyaya akara remains, that's all.
That is correct. Gha goes away, ya goes away, akara remains.
Okay.
पाणिनीय इति शब्दं स्वीकृत्य किंचित जानीमः. Obviously there is the basic word panini and there is paniniya. The question is, how does the word paniniya come starting with panini? The answer is पाणिनिना प्रोक्तं पाणिनीयम् इति तत्र व्युत्पत्तिः दीयते. पाणिनिना प्रोक्तं पाणिनीयम्. Something that is spoken by Panini is the Paniniya. Now Panini might have spoken millions of other things, but proktam, prakarshena uktam, something that has become famous, something that has become eternal. So Paninina yad proktam tat पाणिनीयम इत्युक्ते अष्टाध्यायी इत्युक्ते व्याकरणम सूत्रपाठः इति अर्थः. What is the sutram? तेन प्रोक्तम इति सूत्रमस्ति. let's go to the Sutra Patha. तेन प्रोक्तम् इति सूत्रमस्ति चतुर्थाध्यायस्य तृतीयपादे तेन प्रोक्तम् इति सूत्रेण किं भवति तेन इति तृतीया समर्थात् मीन्स पाणिनिना व्यासेन रामेण कृष्णेन use a tritiya word प्रोक्तम इत्यस्मिन् अर्थे whatever appropriate pratyaya is there it will get added. So this sutram does not give pratyaya. I will come to a different sutram that gives pratyaya. This sutram just says that you are allowed to use a pratyaya in the sense of proktam. This might look complex, so remember this. In the Tadhita Prakaranam, there are two types of sutras. I have explained this through 3 classes ago. There is a set of sutras that will give the meanings. There is another set of sutras that will give the pratyayas, and you have to do a mix and match. So you have to look in the first set, see which meaning, say apatyam is one meaning, tasya apatyam. Look at the other set, which pratyaya. So for some words, apatyam will be iya pratyaya. For some other words, apatyam will be ana pratyaya. For some other words, apatyam will be dhaka pratyaya. So it's a mix and match that happens across the two sets. So this is the sutram from the first set. In that set, only the meanings are listed. One of the meanings is proktam, prakarshena uktam iti proktam. Prakarshena uktam ityukte something that he has specifically said which comes for generations later on. So prakarshena uktam ityasmin arthe tatra kaschana pratyayah bhavati kasmat तृतीया समर्थात् इत्युक्ते तृतीयान्तः यः शब्दः तस्मात् तेन प्रोक्तम् इत्यस्मिन् अर्थे कश्चन प्रत्ययः भवति. So Paninina Proktam is equal to Panini plus something will give Paniniya. Clear so far?
Just came to my mind. Instead of saying Paninina Proktam, in case I end up saying Paninina Kritam, would I be wrong?
So there is a detailed discussion on this point, but tena krutam ityasmin arthe pratyaya vidhanam nasti. So there is no tena krutam. So if you say tena krutam, then you cannot use a sutram to justify the given pratyaya. So the pratyaya that I will teach right now, that will be only applicable for tena proktam and a bunch of other arthas. You can say Paninina Krutam, but then there will not be a way to justify it to convert it into Paniniyam. So we were trying to convert the Paniniyam. We are trying to break down the word Paniniyam. So we say Tena Proktam. Okay. But there is Krute Granthe. So there is a separate sutram called Krute Granthe, but it's little different. We will not go in the details. But the reason why this question Krutam has been discussed in commentaries is because they try to contrast between Krute Granthe, Adhikrutya Krute Granthe, and Tena Proktam out of the scope of discussion for now. Huh. Veena ji, you had a question?
प्रोक्तम् इति क्वशन् नासीत् किल क्वशन् नासीत् महोदय केवलं प्रोक्तम् इत्यस्मिन् अर्थे प्रोक्तं प्रकृष्टेन उक्तम् इति कृतम् इति न स्यात् उक्तम् एव समीचीनं भवति इति
तदेव किमर्थं कृतम् इति वस्तुनः निर्माणं कृतम् इति इत्यस्मिन् कस्मिंश्चित् सन्दर्भे सः शब्दः प्रयुज्यते but that's not correct because you have sutras like krute granthe, right? Krute granthe is there, so granthaha krutaha, so that's okay to have these kind of discussions. So krute granthe ityatra किम् अस्ति सप्तमी तृतीया समर्थात् कृते इत्यस्मिन् अर्थे प्रत्ययः भवति. So वररुचिना कृतः वाररुचः श्लोकः. So you have these kind of examples also. So again, let's not go in Krute Granthe for now. It's like completely out of scope. Okay.
पूर्वे
Now,
केवलं श्रुतिः आसीत् किल प्रवचनमेव आसीत् तस्मिन् दिने पाणिनीय दिने केवलं श्रुतिः किल लेखनं किमपि न आसीत् केवलं परम्परारीत्या
न जानामि किमर्थं न जानामि प्रायेण लेखनं स्यात् नो चेत् लिख अक्षर विन्यासे and so on, these dhatus may not make even sense. So but yeah, I mean primary mode of communication was shruti.
Sir, one of the English authors, English or foreign authors, he says the mere fact that the sutra is used indicate indicates that the matter has been documented, because sutra is generally used to tie up uh, those this thing where matter is written in this thing. Then to tie them up and keep, then only sutra is used. The mere fact the sutra is used is arguing like that.
Oh, the word sutra.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
The
oh,
word
okay.
sutra is used itself must have come because of this, he says.
Oh,
Because these
interesting.
are the
Okay.
important documents. They tie up with a sutra and then keep it.
Oh, sutra. Another meaning of sutra is thread. So the reason why the word sutra is used for all these sutras is that they used a sutra to write them on a piece of paper and use a sutra to tie up. Therefore, these are all end up in coming up. So if that is the case, then we definitely have writing. I mean, definitely writing was there, but probably it was not the primary mode of communication.
So, actually, if I can add, there are a lot of palm leaf manuscripts where digital copies are available with punch holes in them. So the thread of the sutra goes through the punch holes and a bunch is kept as one collection.
So that's how the word sutra came up for these
In
sutras.
fact, it's even in digital libraries, you can see those holes in the palm leaves.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, why would Vruddhiradesh and so on be called as sutras? There is probably no reason unless it's directly sutrayati iti sutram. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. Thank you. Okay.
Actually, one more question for that. How do we know it is Atena Proktam from this
You have to
Tika?
study Ashtadhyayi. You have to study Ashtadhyayi. I have studied it, so I know. So I mean,
It's
it's there
there.
in the commentary, right? Look at this. Paninina Proktam. It's written over there, right?
So from the Tika itself.
Not from the Tika. I mean, your goal eventually is to write this Tika on your own. I mean, just because Tika says Paninina Proktam doesn't mean it becomes Panina Proktam. Like, even if it would have been, I'll give you a very simple example. Now that you have talked, let's go to the original book. See what is written. Paninina Proktam Tadadhite Tadveda. What is written? Paninina Proktam Tadadhite Tadveda. This is a typing mistake. What it should be technically is Paninina Proktam Tena Proktam. Now, how do you understand it? Only when you know grammar. So, first thing is to know grammar, then go to commentaries and study commentaries. So, तत्र व्याख्याने अपि दोषाः अवश्यं भवन्ति. So, पाणिनिना प्रोक्तम इत्यत्र पाणिनियम is actually a very well known word. I'm not joking when I say commentary. So, for example, if we go to tena proktam, a typical example is paniniyam. So when you study the Sutram Tena Proktam without studying any of these commentaries, the stock examples that you will learn are Paniniyam, Apishalam, Kashakrutsnam. Then when you look at a word Paniniya as some other shloka, immediately the Sutram should come to your mind whether or not the Vyakhyanas have listed it. So we are at Panini plus something is equal to Paniniya. Paninina Proktam ityatra first set tatra tena Proktam iti arthaha asti. The next set we have to choose a pratyaya. Before we choose a pratyaya, I want to teach one technical term, one samnya of Ashtadhyayi. The samnya is called Vruddha. So you all know what a vruddhi is. Akara, aikara, aukara ityetesham vruddhiradaic iti sabdena vruddhi iti samnya bhavati. A word whose first swara is a vruddhi. It may not be the first letter. You have to ignore the vyanjanas. You have to look at the first swara. A word whose first swara is a vruddhi samnyaka, like a, ai, or au. That word is called vruddha. So पाणिनि इति शब्दः वृद्धसंज्ञकः अस्ति. किमर्थं? तस्य प्रथमः स्वरः आ इति अस्ति. शैव इति शब्दः वृद्धसंज्ञकः अस्ति. तस्य प्रथमः स्वरः ऐ इति अस्ति. गौतम इति वृद्धसंज्ञकः शब्दः. तस्य प्रथमः स्वरः औ इति अस्ति. औषधिः इति अपि वृद्धसंज्ञकः शब्दः. तस्यापि प्रथमः स्वरः औ इति अस्ति. So you ignore the vyanjanas, only retain the swaras. Look at the first swara. If that first swara is a vruddhi samnyaka swara, that is a, I, and au, The word is called vruddha. You know, so what is the sutram all the way at the end of 1.1? Vruddhir yasya chamadistad vruddham. Look at the padacheda. Vruddhihi yasya ityukte yasya shabdasya acham adihi. Across all the swaras, the first swara vruddhihi asti. Yasya shabdasya tat vruddham. Vruddhir yasya chamadistad vruddham. Clear? Clear so far? So यस्य शब्दस्य प्रथमः स्वरः वृद्धिसंज्ञकः अस्ति तस्य शब्दस्य वृद्धम् इति संज्ञा भवति. What is the purpose of the vruddha samnya? In Paniniya, we have Panini as the word. What is the pratyaya? The pratyaya is ch. Ch. That ch is the pratyaya. How do we get the cha pratyaya? The pratyaya giving sutram. Understand, in Tadhita Prakaranam, there are two groups. One group only gives artha, that is tena proktam. The second group only gives pratyaya. The pratyaya vidhayakam sutram is vruddhat chaha. If a word is vruddha samnyaka, then it will get a cha pratyaya. Vruddhat chaha. This is for tena proktam. It is not for 100 other sutras. For tena proktam, vruddhat chaha. Straightforward sutram. If the original word is vruddha, you get a cha pratyaya. So what is the prakriti? The prakriti is panini. आकारः आदौ अस्ति वृद्धसंज्ञकः शब्दः तस्य शब्दस्य पाणिनीय इति परिवर्तनं कथं भवति इति चेत् तत्र छ इति प्रत्ययः विधीयते.
I wanted to ask, how do we get the ya there then?
So vruddha gets a ch. So for now you have panini plus ch. That's all that we have. We are at multiple steps are there. Those of you who have started memorizing 7.1, how does the 7.1 start? Yoranakau ayaneyiniya phadakachagam pratyayadinam. This sutram gives 5 letters and 5 adeshas. Pha becomes ayan, dha becomes eya, kha becomes in, cha becomes iya, and gha becomes iya. It's just straight transformation. Okay, one to one mapping. These all adeshas, if you read them together, aya, ne, yi, ni, yi, yaha. Read them together without a break. Aya, ne, yi, ni, yi, yaha. That becomes the first word. The original sthanis, read them together. Phadakachagam. That becomes the second word. And pratyayadinam. At the beginning of the pratyaya, if these letters appear, which letters phadakachagha, they are converted into ayaneyi niyiya. So pha becomes ayan, dha becomes aya, kha becomes ina, cha becomes iya, gha becomes iya. Now understand this, the pratyaya that we have is a cha, which is a full chakara. So there is a cha vyanjana followed by a, which is a swara. It is only the cha that the vyanjana is going to get converted to iya. So cha broken down as cha plus a, cha becomes iya, iya plus a becomes iya, panini plus iya, paniniya. Clear?
One question.
Yes.
तत्र वृद्धाच्छः अस्ति खलु प्रीवियस् सूत्रं तत्र तेन प्रोक्तम् इति सन्दर्भे एव इति उक्तवान् तत् किम् अस्ति तत् कुत्र अस्ति where do we see that sandarbha in this sutram?
So that's actually a good question, but it is extremely out of syllabus. So I will not venture into that. For teaching that, I have already taught that in my Tadhita classes. Go ahead and watch those classes if you're really interested in answering this question or getting an answer to this question. But all that I can offer right now is that there is a set of sutras that gives the meanings. there is a set of sutras that gives the pratyayas. So in one set, tena proktam will be there, tasya apatyam will be there, and so on. In the second set, there will be vruddhachaha, there will be say prag divyatah ana, prag vahatesthaka. So there will be different pratyayas. And then there is a complex network of sutras that does a mix and match. So I do not want to venture into those details, but there will be one logic, there will be one mechanism, one technique by which tena proktam has been mapped to vruddhachaha. If I
Okay,
start
so it's
venturing
not
into that,
anuvritti.
no, it's not anuvritti. There is a separate set of rules. So three different types of rules. One rule gives the artha, other rule gives the pratyaya, third rule gives the mapping. Okay,
Astu.
and again, it's not a simple rule that I can state. It's woven into the structure of Ashtadhyayi. So
Astu.
where Vruddhacha appears, where Tena Proktam appears, what are the sutra numbers? You have to do a lot of mathematics and analysis on it, and then you will come to that answer. Okay, so it's pretty complex. I do not want to venture into those details
Astu.
right now.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
the question is really good. I appreciate, but it will be too complex. And all this has so anybody, and I'm genuinely saying this, anybody interested in learning this, all this has been taught into the Tadhita course. The course is available on the course portal over here. If you go to course material, not yeah here, so course material in the Tadhita section, all the lectures are there. Even if you watch initial 5-6 lectures, you should be able to get this. You don't have to watch all 108 classes. Sudhaji.
We said we started with Paniniya, and we said in the Sudha Teeka it says Paninina Proktam. So from there we came to the point where we
So
said
one second, let me stop you there. Wait. So Paniniya word, the derivation is Paninina Proktam, whether or not it is written in Sudha Teeka. Understand the difference. Paniniya Pravesha, this word can have a Shashti as an acceptable solution, but Sudha Teeka says Saptami, so we jump to Saptami. On the other hand, the word Paniniya is always Tena Proktam. Because if you go to Tena Proktam Sutram, one of the stock examples given in Kashika is Paniniyam. Tena Proktam on whom? On Panini. So Panini plus something is equal to Paniniyam. Correct? Now what is that something? That something is Cha. So why is it Cha? Because the Sutram is Vruddhachaha. How is Panini Vruddha? Because it's the first vowel is Akara.
plus A is what we are taking.
Ignore pa. All vyanjanas have to be ignored. Ignore. If you remove all vyanjanas from the word Panini, what is remaining? A, E. What is the first swara?
A.
Is that a Vruddhi Samnyaka?
Yes.
Therefore, the original word Panini is Vruddha Samnyaka. Clear? Because Panini is Vruddha Samnyaka, we look at the second set of Tadhita Sutras where it says Vruddhachaha. Vruddhachaha tells us that there will be a Cha Pratyaya. And therefore we say Panini plus Cha becomes Paniniya. But how does Cha become Iya? So then we look at a different sutram, Ayaneyiniya Phadakachagam Pratyayadinam. Okay? So then Cha becomes Iya. Clear? So Panini plus Iya, Paniniya. Okay?
महोदय वृद्धसम्यक् आदौ एव भवति वा कुत्रापि भवितुमर्हति वा?
Vruddha is the name of the word, is the samnya for the word. Akara is not being called Vruddha. The word Panini, entire thing is being called Vruddha. Why is it being called Vruddha? Because the first swara is Vruddhi. So
तदेव
which swara
आदौ
has to be
भवेत् वा?
Adav eva bhavet. No other swara has to be checked. Only the first swara has to be checked. The first swara need not be the first letter. You have to ignore the vyanjanas. So in Panini, A is actually the second letter. But you ignore vyanjanas. When you ignore vyanjanas, it becomes first.
आम् आम् तत्तु अवगच्छामि.
सूत्रमेव अस्ति किल वृद्धिर्यस्य अचाम् आदिः तद्वृद्धम् इति।
Very nice. Vruddhi yasya
अस्तु
acham
अस्तु आदि
adihi.
आदिः
Vruddhirasya achamadis tadvruddham. So what all we studied? So paniniya pravesha ityatra paniniyasya pravesha utta paniniye pravesha. We would have preferred shashti, but your vyakhana gives saptami, so we have to say saptami. प्रवेश इत्यत्र प्र उपसर्गपूर्वकः विषधातुः तस्य घञ् प्रत्ययः भावे प्रयुज्यते प्रवेश इति शब्दः सिद्ध्यति. पाणिनीय इत्यत्र पाणिनिना प्रोक्तं स्पोकन बाय पाणिनि इति अर्थः. पाणिनि इति मूलशब्दः वृद्धाच्छः इति छ प्रत्ययः. किमर्थं वृद्धाच्छः? पाणिनि इति वृद्धसंज्ञकः शब्दः. कथं वृद्धसंज्ञकः शब्दः? वृद्धिर्यस्याचामादिस्तद्वृद्धम् इति सूत्रेण वृद्धसंज्ञा.
Yeah, my question is, we have the word Paniniya, but in Tena Proktam, it comes as Paniniyam. Is
That
there
is only
any?
prathama ekvachanam given. So paninina proktam paniniyam. Paninina proktaha paniniyah. Paninina prokta paniniya. Okay, it's just napumsakalinga prathama ekvachanam.
Can I have a question?
Yes, please. That's all. That's the reason we are here. Please go ahead.
Can this be extended to other Muni? Suppose if I say Valmiki, so how does it come?
So Valmikina proktam Valmikiyam.
Valmikiyam. So it can be applied to any.
Yes.
Okay.
Tena proktam can
Okay.
be applied to whatever munis you want. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, cha will not come every time. Now Valmiki cha will come because Valmiki is also vruddha. Because va
Yes.
is there, right? So different pratyaya will come. So may not be the same pratyaya. But yeah, I mean, it's possible.
पातञ्जलम् इत्यपि प्रयोगः अस्ति किल?
Patanjalina proktam patanjalam iti prayoga asti. Patanjalam mahabhashyam.
So when we say Valmikiye, Ityarshe Valmikiye, so there also this Valmikiya is coming with this cha, and then
Correct.
it's becoming iya,
Correct.
and then
Correct. So now you start matching the patterns, right? You see newer words and a lot of things becomes immediately clear. Prasanna seems to have written the entire derivation. Let's take a look. So Panini, tasya vruddhi samnya bhavati, Panini plus cha, Panini plus cha plus a, Panini plus iya, Panini plus iya. So till your second last step, it is correct. Now technically it is not savarna dirgham. Something else happens. So the nakarottaraha ikaraha tasya lopaha bhavati. Katham bhavati and so on. I will not go in the details of the prakriya. That is not really relevant at this stage. Therefore, but you can
Yes,
assume there is savarna dirgha for now. Veena ji, you know the sutrama?
यस्य teacher.
Yes, teacher. So tatra, so only one step was missing. In Panini plus iya, the nakarottara ikar goes away. So Panin plus iya, it will become Paniniya. Okay. Let's take a look at your Sudha Teeka in the book. I think you have the PDF, right? So what is written in the PDF? Let's see this. Paniniya praveshaya iti Paninina proktam. He quotes a wrong sutram over here. Tadadhite tadveda. That's a typing mistake in the book. Now you should realize by now it should be called tena proktam. So Paninina proktam tena proktam ityarthe vruddhachaha iti chaha Paniniyam Mahavyakaranam. So that's all about Paniniyam. Tasmin ityukte Paniniye praveshaha. Paniniya praveshaha. And then you have a Chaturthi Vibhakti. Paniniya praveshaya. So he says tadartham or praveshartham. Let's go to the website. I wanted to show this PDF because there is a typing mistake, but for studying, we can actually go to the website. So, Paniniya Praveshaya iti, Paninina Proktam, Tena Proktam ityarthe Vruddhachaha iti chaha, पाणिनीयं महाव्याकरणं तस्मिन् बुद्धे प्रवेशार्थम्.